We now return to the Transformers.
Buckle up, sweetheart. It's gonna be a long day. How's it going, gang? I'm Matt Henderson, and I like to talk about movies, which means, yes, your assumptions are correct. My wife won all of the kids in the divorce. Well, we're here. The final Transformers movie made under the direction of Michael Bay. It's been a long time coming, but we finally made it. Now, before we get into it, I want to address the elephant in the room. It's been a hot minute since my last video. Look, I moved, my life got kind of crazy. Whoops! We don't need to talk about it. What's important is that I'm here now. And look, I made you some content. Daddy made you your favorite, now open wide. Now, I went into Age of Extinction, the last movie, under the impression that it was going to be the worst movie in the franchise. So imagine the terror I felt when I got comments like this. Now, I remember when this movie was first coming out, they released this whole trailer that talked about women empowerment and things like that, and I think that's good. Women empowerment is great. However, I wouldn't expect it from a franchise that's mostly been about
boobies.
Like, even in this movie, there's still some really strange moments where they sexualize women. Also, side note, if you're new here, consider subscribing. I'm deleting the channel when we get to 1 million subscribers, and I don't want to brag or anything, but we're getting pretty close. Alright, now let's get started. We open up in England in the Dark Ages, where we see a bunch of fireballs being catapulted at some British boys. We then meet the Knights of the Round Table fighting a battle while waiting for Merlin to show up. Because that's exactly what you want out of a Transformers movie. The Knights of the Round Table.
This is what the end looks like!
Sadly, this is only the first 2 minutes. It's here we meet Merlin, played by Stanley Tucci. What the hell are you doing here, man? For those of you that don't know, Stanley Tucci played a character named Joshua Joyce in the previous movie. But excluding this scene here, Stanley Tucci isn't in the movie at all, and they never explain why he's playing Merlin. Anyways, we find out that Merlin somehow knows the Transformers. A Transformer gives Merlin a staff that I think controls a dragon. The dragon swoops in with Merlin and helps out the Knights of the Round Table. We then jump forward 1600 years to Optimus Prime floating lifeless in space. Look, I'm sorry, it's just with the juxtaposition of how the last movie ended to this, like, I know he's not dead, but he looks pretty dead.
Leave planet Earth alone. 'Cause I'm coming for you.
I just don't think this is as cool as they thought it looked. And then we get a voiceover by Anthony Hopkins explaining how with Optimus Prime and Megatron out of the picture, the Autobots and the Decepticons are just beating the shit out of each other in public. We get a brief look at a military group called the TRF, a new group responsible for hunting down Transformers. Because when in doubt, just recycle old ideas, which is a thing that this movie does a lot. We then find out that some of the Transformers are just chilling in Cuba, and then we're reintroduced to John Turturro. What the hell are you doing here, man? Honestly, I had a minor panic attack when I saw John Turturro. We then meet some children who want to see some dead robots. We see the kids stumble upon a bunch of wreckage and a still living Transformer. We meet a BB-8 knockoff and a girl named Isabella, who's clearly supposed to be Rey Star Wars in this scene. BB-8 takes down an AT-ST. What's happening? The girl takes the rest of the kids to hide under a Transformer named Canopy. The TRF see Canopy and think that the kids are in danger, so logically, they open fire. Canopy gets shot down and Isabella watches him die. And then Cade shows up. What are the odds that all these characters are in the same place at the exact same time? Cade helps the kids escape and then goes back to the Transformer from earlier. The Transformer gives Cade a talisman and then dies. Barricade shows up and watches Cade almost get arrested. Bumblebee shows up and immediately dies. Kidding. But wouldn't that be a great way to start the movie? Also, don't worry, Bumblebee still can't talk. However, he does say some grotesque shit.
I'll burn you so bad you'll wish you died as a child.
That is not how you de-escalate a situation. We're then reintroduced to Lennox from the first set of movies, which honestly, it's kinda nice to see a character from the first 3 films that isn't this. Lennox calms Bumblebee down and lets the group go, which seems questionable. We're reintroduced to Galvatron, sorry, he goes by Megatron again. And the movie doesn't explain why, but realistically it's because slapping the name Megatron on a box sells more toys. We find out that Megatron needs the talisman that Cade has because Cade's the main character. We then cut back to space where Optimus Prime crash lands on Cybertron.
What has happened to my world?
You know, you'd think he'd remember the whole war that the entire franchise is built upon. We then meet Quintessa, the Prime of Life. Quintessa bitch slaps Prime and judges him for Cybertron being destroyed, and tells him he's going to fix Cybertron or the Transformers race will die off. We're then introduced to a woman named Vivian at a polo game. Why we're introduced to her at a polo game, I have no idea. We immediately cut to Oxford, where she teaches, and we never bring up her polo skills ever again.
That's right, she never even rides a horse in a movie with
About knights, right. Yeah, I was expecting that to come back around, and it just never did, unless we missed something. I did black out for about 20 minutes. We then see Anthony Hopkins watching Vivian at an alarming distance. We then find out that Prime wants to rebuild his home, and in order to do that, he has to find a staff and return it to Quintessa. We then cut back to Cade at a junkyard.
Hey, Chief, you're really getting into this whole Indian thing, huh?
Sounds, I don't know, vaguely racist.
Yeah. Why would you make your character vaguely racist? We're supposed to like him. He's the main character. A little racist is a little too racist. Also, Mark Wahlberg's lips are really light pink in this scene. It looks like he just finished eating a bag of powdered donuts. That's not really a criticism of the movie, it's just an observation. We find out that Isabella snuck into Cade's junkyard, and we're introduced to a new Transformer called Day Trader. And why the hell does he have a nose? We see Starscream's head. How dare you? Also, Starscream's head was blown up. We saw that happen 2 movies ago. Day Trader gives Cade a voice box for Bumblebee. We find out that the talisman that Cade has is from Iacon, and that it's a sign of the apocalypse. And you know, I could go for an apocalypse right about now. I'm kidding. We get a Bud Light ad, and we find out that Cade's daughter, Tessa, is in college now, and he can't see or talk to her or else he puts her in danger. Now, this will serve as the idea of emotional conflict. We then see what looks like 6 horns coming out of the ground in several continents. That's not... They wouldn't.
No.
Would they?
Maybe.
We find out that Cybertron is approaching and is going to crash into Earth. We did this already. 2 movies ago. What's happening? We find out that Megatron stole CIA officers to negotiate with the TRF to get
Certain alien associates of his released.
and they fucking agreed to it. Are you insane? This guy has been trying to kill you for what, 10 years? And you give him a fucking army?
If we're gonna get through this, we have got to open the door and let the monsters inside.
No, what? What are you talking about? What are you saying to me right now? When has that ever worked? We then basically get a recreation of the Suicide Squad villain intro, and I hate this so much. God, it feels like we've been here for an eternity. How far into the movie are we?
Yeah, it's been about like 40 minutes.
40 minutes?
Yeah.
So this is hell. We find out that the TRF gives Megatron Cade's location. What the hell? Why would you do that, you assholes? Bumblebee gets a voice box installed, and he sounds like Siri. So instead of having a voice box that sounds like Siri, he decides to rip his throat out. After 5 movies of him not talking, he finally gets a voice. And it's a joke. Why? Because they fucking hate you. Megatron, the Decepticons, and the TRF show up at Cade's junkyard. Cade and the group escape. Hound stays behind and stalls Megatron, successfully putting him behind by about 3 seconds. The Dinobots jump out of the ground and stall the TRF.
TRF operations, stay out of my way. Those were my men.
What the hell was that? Did you see that?
Were my men.
Why did they cut it like that? The TRF sends out miniature TIE fighters to search for the group. Why is there so much Star Wars shit in this? The group is ambushed by the Decepticons, and all the Decepticons in this movie are annoying as hell. And granted, they're not in this movie very much, but they're annoying as shit. They're supposed to be scary. They're not. They bother me. Cade's Mario coin wraps around his arm. There's a brief battle between the Autobots and the Decepticons retreat. The TRF finds and chases after the group in one of the longest and most boring chase scenes I've ever seen in a movie. The group accidentally stumbles upon C-3PO in an elevator, and then Cade gets yoinked out of the window.
What's with the C-3PO ripoff?
Don't kill the messenger.
They acknowledge that they're ripping off Star Wars with the C-3PO character. That's just lazy writing. C-3PO's real name is Cogman. Cogman tells Cade that the talisman chose him and will not let go of him until the quest is finished. Cogman also tells Cade that he needs to leave the group and come with him, and that the group would be in less danger with him not around. When has Cade ever gotten anybody in danger? Right. Alright, we're about an hour into this movie and I have no idea what's going on. We keep adding new characters and new plot lines that lead to nothing. I have no idea why anybody is here. Like, we're an hour in, I should have some semblance of what's going on. I got nothing. Nothing. We cut back to Simmons, who's on the phone with Anthony Hopkins, and tells him he knows where an ancient book is that's made out of
Scrotum or something.
They get John Turturro to say scrotum a lot more in these movies than one would expect. We cut back to space with Prime and Quintessa, where we find out
Optimus, it is time you knew the truth.
Don't do it.
The place you call Earth has another name.
Don't you fucking do it, movie. Don't you do it.
Unicron.
I can't do this.
You have to.
I fucking know.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
My brother and I had to pause this movie for a minute and just have a mental breakdown. I legitimately stood in the hallway for about 10 minutes just laughing at the idea that they added another plot, and this plot, I'm blown away. Okay, a bit of backstory. For those of you that don't know, Unicron is a character that was introduced in the Transformers animated movie in 1986. He's a giant planet transformer that eats other planets. So picture Galactus if Galactus was a Death Star. Look, Unicron's a big deal to fans of Transformers. I'm honestly a little surprised that they didn't do him sooner. Hell, I was even a little excited when I realized that they were doing Unicron, until I quickly realized that they can't do anything with him, because if he transforms, the movie ends. Everybody dies. There's no chance of getting payoff for this. And sure, maybe the concept could work in a movie. The Transformers have to stop Unicron from waking up and transforming. That could be cool, but no, we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna crash Cybertron into Earth again, add some fucking knights, we'll call it a day. Holy shit, man, fuck this movie.
We now return to the Transformers.
We find out that Optimus has to destroy Unicron and becomes Nemesis Prime. He's finally made his full transition into the murdering sociopath that the movies have been building him up to be. We cut back to Vivian, who's being pressured by her family to find a boyfriend. Because women not wanting to be on a relationship right now and focus on their career is weird. You know, women empowerment stuff. Vivian gets kidnapped by her car, and this car turns out to be Hot Rod. And like Unicron, Hot Rod is an important character to Transformers. Hot Rod is the character that takes over the mantle of leading the Autobots after Optimus Prime dies, and in this movie, instead of doing that, he actually just does nothing. He serves no purpose to be in this movie other than to have a French accent, because French accents are funny. Also, what, were flames a little too much for this one, but not for Optimus Prime's Guy Fieri truck?
The super duper weenie wagon.
Kate arrives at Castle Fogan, and we get a way too long dialogue to explain that this Transformer has dementia. Hot Rod shows up with Vivian.
What a bitchin' car she is.
Fuck off. We find out that Anthony Hopkins is the last surviving member of the Witwickens. What's going on? What the fuck is going on? Vivian and Kate begin to butt heads.
What, I've come here to be insulted by some overeducated Ivy Tower princess in a stripper dress?
Again, this movie was advertised to be about women empowerment. Also, that isn't a stripper dress. That's just a dress.
And if my dress makes you feel uncomfortable, then maybe I could take it off.
Okay.
Stop it! I'm tired of this franchise being so horny! We get a quick line telling us that Cogman is actually a headmaster. What? Stop adding things, please! For those of you that don't know, and I can't believe I'm doing this again, for those of you that don't know, a headmaster is a tiny transformer that transforms into the head of a bigger transformer. They don't do that in this movie, so what's the point of calling him that? And for whatever reason, frankly, I just accepted him being a tiny robot man.
That's the watch that killed Hitler. Don't screw with it.
Wow. I guess time really does get us all in the end. Stop it. We find out that the Witwickens are a group of people that united to protect the secret history of Transformers being on Earth. And boy, they've done a real shit job at that recently. It's then implied that Sam was killed off screen between the third and fourth movie, and I don't know. This feels kinda shitty to just kill off the main character of the first three movies off screen. We find out that Vivian's father was a Witwiccan, and thus making her a Witwiccan. We then see Prime and Ironhide in old war photos. But they landed on Earth in 2007. Did they just forget about all the movies that happened before this one? We see Bumblebee kill some Nazis. We find out that there were also 12 Transformer Knights that fought alongside the Knights of the Round Table. Sure, why not? Fuck it. Who cares? We find out that Cade is the last knight. We then get an uncomfortably long moment of Vivian and Hopkins asking Cade when the last time he had sex was. We find out that Vivian and the group has to find Merlin's staff before Cybertron hits her. We are 3/4 of the way through this movie, and we are just barely getting the MacGuffin. Cade meets Vivian's family, and then they destroy Vivian's dad's old office trying to figure out where Merlin's staff is. Vivian's family thinks Cade and Vivian are having sex because sex is funny. I'm losing my mind here, gang. My brain is melting. Simmons says scrotum again, and then Anthony Hopkins finds an ancient book. The book explains that Earth is Unicron, which we already knew, because they already told us that. And it's still bad. We find out that the movie is gonna end on Stonehenge. Kate and Vivian figure out where the staff is. The group gets chased by the TRF, and this scene. Hi, Editor Matt here. It dawned on me while I was editing this that there was no real way for me to show why I don't like the scene without showing the entire scene, and I'm not gonna do that. So what I'll do instead is explain why I don't like the scene using math. This scene lasts 2 minutes and 58 seconds, and within this scene, there is 130 cuts. That means that there is one shot every 1.3 seconds on average. I don't know if you have any idea how to shoot a scene. It's okay if you don't, but if you don't do it like that. You'll find that the best action scenes have very few cuts. Some of them will even be one shots, but generally speaking, you are gonna have to cut at some point, and that's okay. But once you get to the point where you're cutting every 1.3 seconds and shaking the camera around, it's usually a way to give your audience sensory overload to hide the fact that the scene doesn't make sense. There is a cut every 1 second. I hate this movie. I've been editing this thing for so long. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it. Back to the video. The group then gets in a submarine to search for the staff. Anthony Hopkins dips out, and then we find out that the submarine is a transformer. But like, is it? It doesn't transform, it's just a normal-ass submarine. So what's the point of calling it a transformer? Right, plot convenience. The TRF tracks the submarine because it's a transformer. We get an ab shot of Marky Mark, so at least they're sexualizing men now too. See, times are different. Men and women aren't treated differently. God. Oh, was that blood? Cogman kicks a fish and makes dinner, and Kate and Vivian go on a date, which is a totally realistic thing to be doing right now. Also, where did Cogman get limes in the middle of the ocean? The group finds Merlin's ship, and then the ship wakes up. We cut back to Isabella and the Autobots in Kate's junkyard, and they get a ship to England. Kate and Vivian find the staff, and it looks like just a tree branch, and Kate gets way too angry over this. Like, I don't know, dude, you live in a world where things transform way too often. Maybe hand it to the only person that's allowed to wield the staff before getting really pissed. One of the knights wakes up and attacks the group. Vivian grabs the branch, and it transforms into the staff. What are the odds of that? The TRF runs in and attacks, the rest of the knights wake up, and then Prime shows up and kills some of the knights and then demands he's given the staff. So you know, nothing out of the ordinary for Prime here. Prime leaves and Bumblebee follows him. Prime accidentally gets hit by a submarine. Bumblebee fights Prime, and then...
I am Bumblebee, your oldest friend.
Are you serious? He can talk now? How? He ripped his throat out earlier. How is he talking now? Bumblebee talking snaps Prime out of it, and I feel like I've seen this from somewhere before.
Why did you say that name?
Oh, right. Megatron shows up and tells Prime that he's turned his back on Cybertron and steals the staff. The Knights show up and kick the shit out of Prime.
The Guardian Knights are going to kill me.
Yeah. Probably. I mean, you're literally a serial killer, so. Kate's Mario coin turns into a Mario sword, and Kate's ready to fight the Knights. And this is probably gonna be very difficult and trying for him, right?
Actually, it's gonna be super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Oh, really?
Kate blocks an 8-ton, 40-foot tall sword being swung down by a several thousand-ton robot and saves Prime.
Earth, the only place in the universe whose people let me call it home.
No? They've literally spent the entire franchise trying to get you to leave Earth. What the fuck are you talking about? Kate gives Prime a motivational speech. Prime says they need to kill Quintessa, and then we see Cybertron crash into Earth. The Decepticons and the Knights ships arrive at Stonehenge, and Megatron begins to use the staff. But Anthony Hopkins pulls a Glock on his ass. I have no idea what's going on at this point, but Prime says he needs to help steal the staff back by flying into Quintessa's ship. Now Cybertron is fully crashing into Earth, and I don't really know what this accomplishes, and I don't think the writers know either. Oh, also, Bumblebee can't talk again. But like, why? Kate asks Vivian out. The TRF rips off their badges because they side with the Transformers now. The group begins to infiltrate Quintessa's ship, and the Knights form into a dragon somehow. The group gets shot down, and a gunfight between the TRF, the Autobots, and the Decepticons begin. And I have no idea how to follow any of this shit. Prime shows up on a fucking dragon.
Did you forget who I am?
A serial killer, we know. Kate and Vivian kiss as they're about to be destroyed. The world is about to be destroyed, and this scene would be almost emotional if I was rooting for the world at this point. Prime kicks Megatron out of Quintessa's ship. Bumblebee kills Quintessa and says,
"Sting like a bee."
So can he talk or not? Does his voice only work sometimes? What the hell is going on here? Vivian pulls the staff out and stops the devastation of Earth. Hot Rod shoots literal plot armor at Kate and Vivian, and Prime saves them both. Prime gives a speech and flies up to Cybertron, and like, that's it? Cybertron's just a part of Earth now? We then get a final scene implying Quintessa's going to come back and fight Unicron in a movie that will never be made. How dare you? And that's it. That's the end of the movie and the end of Michael Bay's Transformers. That feels really weird to say. That's exciting. I'm fucking done. Final thoughts. There's only a few movies that I can describe like this, and I don't say this lightly. This isn't a movie. It's an amalgamation of scenes happening in a somewhat specific order. And I know that sounds a lot like a movie, but I promise it's not. I don't know what happened during the production of this movie, but it's such a mess. From convoluted plot points to thin characters, mediocre cinematography, bad CGI, retconning plot points from other movies, and this movie itself, it's such a mess. I don't know what happened. Also, there's hardly any Transformers stuff happening in this movie. It took me more than half of the movie to understand what was going on. It felt like the first act was 95 minutes and the second and third act were about 25 to 30 each. That isn't how you write a movie. I don't even know where you could possibly go at this point if they wanted to continue Michael Bay's world. They would either have to base it on Cybertron or some obscure series like Beast Wars or something. But they wouldn't do that, right? Right? What happened? The franchise had such a promising start. While the first movie wasn't great, it at least had a lot of enjoyable qualities, and then it immediately imploded on itself. At least the first movie was watchable. Revenge of the Fallen was bad, but it didn't have a script, so I gave it some slack. Dark of the Moon was not good, to say the least, but I also wouldn't say it's a total pile of shit. Age of Extinction was so bad that it changed the way that I watch movies. And then there's this, which is somehow worse. The Last Night is so bad that it isn't even a movie. I just don't know what happened. The series had such potential and they immediately shot it in the foot and head and all of its vital organs. All I wanted was a movie on Cybertron with characters that were heroic and not cold-blooded killers with zero remorse. Is that too much to ask for? But it's over now. Well, kind of. While The Last Night is the last Transformers movie directed by Michael Bay, they did make one more movie called Bumblebee, directed by Travis Knight and written by Christina Hudson, and we will be watching that in a few weeks and talking about that, I promise. Now, that being said, this is the end of the video. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. If you liked what you've seen, consider leaving a like. If you're new here, consider subscribing. I'm Matt Henderson. Thank you.